You're not blocked, you're loyal. Loyal to a version of yourself that no longer fits the life you say you want. Most people who feel stuck aren't fighting circumstances. They're defending an identity, and they don't even realize it. They believe something outside of them is holding progress back, when in reality their behavior, decisions, reactions, and emotional patterns are perfectly aligned with who they currently believe they are. The mind is always consistent with self-image. If you quietly see yourself as overlooked, you will unconsciously choose behaviors that keep you overlooked. If you see yourself as the responsible one, the fixer, the stable one, you will repeatedly enter roles where you carry more than your share. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, your nervous system will treat struggle as familiar territory, and familiarity feels like safety, even when it hurts. This is the uncomfortable truth. Outcomes don't resist you. They mirror you. Self-image is not what you consciously say about yourself. It is the emotional blueprint you have rehearsed for years. It is the internal story you default to when no one is watching. It shapes tone of voice, posture, timing, ambition, tolerance for disrespect, and even how long you stay in rooms where you feel small. And once that identity is formed, your subconscious will protect it with surprising intensity, because identity feels like survival. The brain does not prioritize happiness, it prioritizes consistency. Familiar pain is often chosen over unfamiliar possibility because the nervous system interprets the unknown as risk. So when people say they feel blocked, what they often mean is that they are trying to produce new results while remaining emotionally committed to an old self-concept. You can't outwork an identity. You can't out-visualize it. You can't positively affirm your way around it. If your internal identity says, "I am the one who gets left," then you will unconsciously choose partners who confirm that belief, tolerate subtle withdrawal, overextend to earn affection, and interpret neutral behavior as rejection. Not because you're weak, but because your subconscious is trying to keep reality consistent with the self it recognizes. Subconscious behavioral loops are powerful precisely because they are invisible. They feel like personality. They feel like, this is just how I am. But most of them were formed in response to earlier environments, family roles, early relationships, social hierarchies, survival strategies that once made sense. The overachiever may have once needed excellence to feel seen. The avoidant may have once needed distance to feel safe. The peacemaker may have once needed silence to prevent chaos. And those roles solidified into identity. Years later, when life demands expansion, those same roles become cages. But the mind resists letting them go because losing an identity, even a painful one, can feel like losing yourself. This is where psychological resistance hides. It does not announce itself as fear. It disguises itself as logic. It says, this isn't realistic. It says, that's just not me. It says, I don't want to change who I am. But often what you are protecting is not your essence. It is a role you adapted to survive. There is a comfort zone attached to every identity. Even the identity of being stuck has structure. It gives you predictable disappointment. It gives you familiar explanations. It allows you to maintain coherence in your story. If you suddenly succeeded in the area you claim to be blocked, it would demand a new self-definition, new standards, new boundaries, new ways of speaking, possibly new relationships. And that level of change threatens the continuity of the old self. So the psyche stalls, not because you're incapable, but because change feels like psychological death. Consider how many people say they want confidence, yet remain attached to the identity of being the nice one who never disrupts harmony, or how many say they want financial growth, yet still see themselves as the creative type who isn't good with structure, or how many say they want a secure relationship, yet are deeply attached to the intensity of unpredictability because calm feels unfamiliar. The attachment is subtle but strong. You can tell where identity lives by what feels non-negotiable in your self-description. I'm just not that kind of person. I've always been this way. People like me don't do that. These statements aren't facts. They are boundaries around identity. And identity filters behavior. Behavior accumulates into results. Results reinforce identity. The loop closes. This is why effort alone rarely changes long-term outcomes. If the identity remains intact, behavior will eventually recalibrate to maintain consistency. You may temporarily act outside of character, but the subconscious tension pulls you back toward what feels known. Psychological growth is not about adding traits. It is about releasing attachments to outdated roles. But releasing identity is destabilizing. It means acknowledging that who you thought you were may have been a coping strategy. It means admitting that the blocked feeling is not an external wall, but an internal allegiance. And allegiance is powerful. People stay loyal to identities that cause them pain because those identities once gave them belonging, safety, or validation. The responsible child becomes the responsible adult. The overlooked sibling becomes the adult who expects to be unseen. The one who was praised for being low maintenance continues minimizing needs. Then one day they look around and wonder why life feels small. It feels small because the identity is small, not in worth, but in range. When your identity expands, behavior naturally follows. When behavior changes consistently, outcomes shift. Not because something mystical intervened, but because the system reorganized itself around a new self-concept. A person who sees themselves as worthy does not need to force boundaries. They enforce them instinctively. A person who sees themselves as capable does not debate every opportunity. They move with a different posture. A person who no longer identifies as the one who struggles interprets obstacles as temporary instead of personal. The external world responds differently because the internal position has changed. So if you feel blocked, ask yourself a harder question. What identity would have to dissolve for the life I want to feel normal? Would you have to stop being the rescuer, the underestimated one, the misunderstood one, the self-sacrificing one, the rebel, the victim of circumstance? Growth often requires grieving the old self, and that grief is misinterpreted as resistance, laziness, or fear of failure. When in reality, it is the discomfort of redefining who you are allowed to be. You are not stuck because something is against you. You are stuck because part of you is still committed to being who you've always been. The mind protects identity the way it protects the body, automatically and without consultation. Until awareness interrupts the loop, you will continue producing results that confirm your existing self-image. This is not a punishment, it is a design. The system is working exactly as it was trained to work. The question is not why life is blocking you. The question is, which version of you is being protected? When identity shifts, effort feels different. Decisions feel cleaner. Opportunities stop feeling threatening. And what once seemed blocked begins to look like a door that required a different posture to open. You were never blocked. You were attached. Attached to a self that made sense once, but does not align with where you say you want to go. And until that attachment is examined, no amount of external change will feel permanent. Because life does not reorganize around wishes. It reorganizes around identity.